Before we get started today, we just wanted to talk a little bit about an upcoming project. So we're going to take a lot of people have asked us about how to get started in a nursery, kind of small scale, very low budget, and we want to show people how to do that. So we're going to make a little micro nursery.
Yep.
And it's going to be small.
Yep.
But it's going to also be very low cost. And so we're going to work with a small area of our property, and we're going to start almost completely from scratch. So stay tuned. We'll have many episodes, and we're going to go a couple of years with this until that little nursery starts to make a decent income. And you'll see it from start to finish. Today we're going to be propagating the PJM Rhododendron. This is a newer plant to us. We've put some small ones in the ground. We purchased 6 from a big box store clearance sale last October to kind of get us started with cutting material. This is a non-patented plant. Anybody can propagate it. It was hybridized a long time ago, and it's now free and open to propagate. We love them. They have a beautiful lavender flower, and they grow to a nice sized bush. They don't require a lot of sun, a little bit of dappled sunlight. Absolutely great plant. So we've got some softwood cuttings that we're going to take today, and I'll show you kind of quickly what we're looking for. So that's a nice cutting. It's got some lower leaf nodes here that we can strip these 4 leaves off. These top leaves can be trimmed back. That little bud there can come off, and that's going to make a fantastic cutting. We're going to put this in water until we're ready to put it into our soil mix for rooting, which is going to be perlite and a little bit of peat moss to hold moisture. And there you go. It's that simple. Let's see how many we can collect. We've already collected quite a few from the plants that we have down in the nursery. They did put out great growth this year, and we want to shape them and try to grab some cuttings from them as well. And so there we go. We also have a nice stock of PJM rhododendrons that we can take some cuttings from now, because they're going to trim them back a little bit. It's going to make them branch out and fill out much more. So there's no point in wasting the cuttings. We'll go ahead and take some from these 50 plants and add those to our group of cuttings that we have from our larger plants, and hopefully get a nice amount of cuttings this year. Okay, just a few things to mention. So when we are pruning in the summer, as we are right now, we are really trying to do 2 things. We're looking to establish shape. In some cases, we want to get the plant to move in a certain direction. So in that case, we're not really looking for cuttings. Cuttings would just be an extra bonus from anything that we took off when we're trying to trim for shape. So you can trim off some larger wood and then go back and grab some cuttings that are going to work for rooting. We'll just run through each one of these and do exactly that. We're going to trim for shape, and then we will trim for what we want to use as a cutting. Those are not necessarily the same thing. But we do them at the same time. And again, every time we prune, we hope that the plant's going to branch out at least in a couple directions from there. And we're going to end up with a nice fuller plant later on. And while these may go in the ground in our property, they will be long-term cutting material for us, and we'll get to enjoy them. Again, if you have any flower buds coming up, you're going to want to remove those. You don't want the energy of the stem going into any type of flowering. The next step is just to get them to root, not flower. So I'll continue on through these 6, getting a nice bunch of cuttings, and maybe we'll get somewhere between 50 and 75 today. And then we'll get our plants also pruned up, and that'll be great. Okay, before we root any cuttings today, just want to revisit something I talked about previously, and that is adding some ventilation holes right around the dirt level of your plastic bins that you're using for rooting. And you might not use this, but this is what we use. And I was having a lot of trouble getting the holes drilled without splitting the plastic all up, so I decided to clamp a block behind it. It's got a little hole in it, and the idea is to go real slowly with that block back up so that you can get your holes in without splitting the plastic terribly, and just move it, putting about 6 holes per bin. Just kind of move this around. And then you run the drill pretty slowly, don't go too fast. Get it started. Once it starts biting, just go real slow. And you can make some pretty clean holes that way without splitting the plastic. If you have any excess, just take it off with your hand or a knife. And that's it. On to putting our cuttings in to root.
So the next step is we're going to finish cutting these up, trimming them. We're going to stick them in our rooting hormone, and then we're going to put them in our prepared bin here, which we have made little troughs, like little rows. So when we stick the cuttings right in, we'll backfill with a little dirt. And you'll see us do it in a second.
So knock off the excess. This really doesn't require 2 people, but we like to work together. And it goes fun. Pretty quickly. I've gotten most of these ready, but a few I still have to take off the bottom leaves.
Now you do that so that all the energy goes into the stem and the roots instead of into the leaves, right?
Right, and the plant doesn't need the leaves to photosynthesize. The energy's in the stem.
Okay.
And the leaves will just cause them to dry out.
Got it. Now I'm kind of doing a little zigzag action. Is that what you would do?
I would just go straight, but that's fine.
Okay.
I didn't mention one thing about the perlite and peat moss mix, and we're really preferring that for certain plants. And I'm going to call them the fine root plants. These are plants like rhododendron, azalea, this PJM, which is a rhododendron. They really grow very fine roots, and it's very hard to get them out of sand sometimes, which is a good rooting medium, but when these root, they'll come out with a nice little root ball.
That's good.
With the soil mix around them, and you can just drop them right in a pot, and they are ready to go. So
nice.
Yeah, it's fun pulling them out.
Okay, so we're going to keep going here and we'll show you when they're all finished. So we have all the clippings in our bucket, right? You can see them here. See all those little beauties? And then we're going to give it a quick water, but you keep watering it, you know, until it gets a good soaking. We're just going to do a quick one for the camera's sake. There you go.
We've actually already watered them, so yeah, and that's it. We did get about 60 cuttings.
Yes.
And the final step is going to be to put the top on.
Yep.
Make sure you keep your little vent holes around the side clear, and that's just to keep a little bit of airflow around the tray so that they don't rot at that soil level.
Right.
So make sure they're clear. Top goes on.
And then you were saying though, in the past you've told me that sometimes you do that.
Right, so that's a interesting thing. So the plants get so acclimated to the high humidity, and the humidity is going to lay above those holes all up in this area. And then when you remove that condition, if you were to just go ahead and take the top off and leave them wide open, they'd really dry out very quickly. So you want to be careful to kind of acclimate them to the normal atmosphere by doing it slowly. So just put it like this, put a little rock on the top, let them get a little more ventilation, maybe take it off a little more over time before you're ready to transplant all of them into pots. So that way they won't be shocked. And that does work.
Yeah.
One thing to watch out for, we don't put holes in the bottom. So if you leave them like this and it rains, they're going to get flooded. You're going to have a problem. You're going to want to tip them and drain them out and keep an eye on them. But at that point, you're just about ready to transplant them into pots.
Right.
So you'll be fine.
And you can always run out and cover them too if you know the big storm's coming.
You can if you're home.
Cover them up.
I'm not always home. So.
True. We
That's
try.
a problem. You can't watch everything all the time. And as it gets going, you know, you've got a lot of things to watch. So
Right, it's true.
try to do things kind of foolproof.
Yep.
So that's it. They're covered. They're going to go in a kind of a shady area. We don't want to cook them in the bin. And we've got 60 or 70 nice cuttings. Hopefully they'll all root, a good percentage of them. And we'll have little tiny PJM rhododendrons soon.
Yay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, folks.